because the people claiming that he was somehow putting himself and his family in danger by repeating some of the statistics or repeating some of the events that were first reported in 2013 find themselves today, I wonder whether they realize it themselves, find themselves today in precisely the position that they accused him of being. It is them, by using words like boasting and accusing him of irresponsibility, it is they who have, if he has now found himself exposed to more risk than he was previously in, it is as a direct consequence of British journalists and broadcasters completely misreporting and misrepresenting what he has said and what he wrote in his book. I pointed out to you on Monday that the actual words in his book bore no resemblance whatsoever to the coverage that I was seeing, and I speak as a former newspaper journalist. I mean, the gap between what was actually written in his book and what I was seeing in headlines and hearing people who took all of their information from the headlines, I don't know whether or not that gives you a bit more of a break. If you're simply responding to what's in the headlines and talking about it on the television or the radio, are you less culpable? Are you less corrupt than people who are actually writing the headlines, people who are actually writing the stories, based, of course, on translations from the accidentally, prematurely released Spanish edition? So, there was absolutely nothing to stop anybody getting their hands on the Spanish edition and reporting the full context of what he said about killing 25 Taliban. Absolutely nothing at all to prevent people from doing that. But they chose not to, and they chose not to for three reasons. Reason number one, they didn't care what had actually been written. They had, well, that leads into reason three. Reason number two, they didn't know what had actually been written. The fact that they didn't care meant that they didn't bother to find out what had actually been written. And when you marry those two facts together, they're not opinions, they're facts, you come to reason number three, why this happened, which is they will do anything they can to hurt him, including taking exactly the same approach to this story that the Taliban took. Talking about people now in the British media who were attacking Prince Harry while rolling out a red carpet for, what's his chops, Andrew Potato. I'll say that again. Attacking Prince Harry, a military hero, however you measure it, while rolling out a red carpet for Andrew Potato and claiming that they're somehow patriotic. The same people have now found themselves taking the same approach to the same misrepresentation of a now published story that the Taliban took, the actual Taliban. If you're towing the same line on this story that the Taliban are towing, it's probably time to give your head a bit of a wobble. But that's what hatred does to you. That's what unhinged hatred does to you. And the reasons that lie behind the unhinged hatred directed at this couple would detain us for a lot more than an hour, although obviously misogynoir, which is a word I was only introduced to as a consequence of discussing Meghan Markle's treatment by the British media and establishment, is a large part of it. It extends inevitably to her brother. So there it is. Those three reasons are horrible. What he actually said bears no resemblance whatsoever to what we were told he said by newspapers. And the reason why that happened is because they don't care what he said. They don't want to find out what he actually said because that would rob them of the opportunity to attack him with what they say he said, but he didn't. That's pretty scary, all right? Now, if you're talking about whether or not a footballer's wife is leaking stories to a newspaper about another footballer's wife, it's hilarious and it doesn't matter. Or whether you're just misrepresenting what a game show contestant or a reality television contestant has done, that also can seem trivial until, of course, a presenter takes her own life in some contexts, in some well-documented examples. So the stakes are always high when you're playing with people's truth. But when you're actually taking the same line as the Taliban on a misrepresentation of what a British military hero said, you're scum. That's not a word I use very often. But you are. It's unthinkable to me that you could have woken up this morning and found yourself on the same side of the fence on how this story has been treated and reported. I am not for a moment suggesting that you would agree with the Taliban about anything else, because I don't know you. But you've rolled out a red carpet for Andrew Potato while attacking Prince Harry, so we're going to disagree about quite a lot of things. And here's a big one. If you woke up this morning and found yourself on the same side of the fence as the Taliban when it comes to the misreporting and misrepresentation of a story so easy to establish that you only have to read a book that has just become the best-selling non-fiction book in history, you need help, don't you? But you're not going to realise you need help, because every time you turn the telly on or flick on the radio or open up a newspaper, loads of people agree with you. And a quick word about some of the military experts used to support the misrepresentation of the story. It's funny because we never get the opportunity to talk to military experts about how the media works. Some of them know, some of them exploit it, some of them are just as cynical as the people that pay them to come on their programs or to contribute to their newspaper articles. But what actually happens is that they get a call from someone who's telling them what Harry has said. So they'll read a couple of lines and they'll say he's boasting, which is, what do you think about Prince Harry boasting about killing Taliban, calling them chess pieces? He did use that description, but he used it in much more complicated context. So these people who I'm not defending them because they should know better, but if I rang you up as a national journalist and said, I've got a great story about Keith stealing mince pies from Santa's grotto at the children's home just before Christmas, what do you think about that? You would say to me, well, Keith is absolutely reprehensible, those poor little children. And I think we should have some sort. Can we start an appeal to get them? I mean, no self. He was working as an elf at the time. No self-respecting elf. So you'd phone up an elf expert, and they'd say no self-respecting elf would ever steal mince pies from children in the grotto. So you phone up a military expert and you say Harry's done this, that, and the other, and they say, well, no one would ever do that. And they are, in a sense, they wouldn't get quoted in the paper unless they said exactly what the journalist wanted them to say. So that there you go. That's the closest I will come to a defence. Because you only have to go back to 2013 to see these headlines. And what is remarkable for watchers of Fleet Street is that some of the bylines on these stories are the same as the bylines on the stories attacking him for writing in his book about killing 25 Taliban. So these headlines come from the year 2013. These stories are 10 years old. The Daily Mail. Harry, I have killed. You take a life to save a life, says Apache pilot Prince as he flies out of Afghan war zone. 2013. The Sun. Harry kills Taliban chief. Hero Prince in missile strike on commander. 2013. The Daily Express. Prince Harry reveals he killed Taliban fighters. 2013. Daily Mirror. Harry sensation. I've killed Taliban. Amazing interview as he ends 5-month tour. Prince, we take a life to save a life. It's my job. 2013. And the Daily Star. Harry, I've killed Taliban. Take a life to save a life. 10 years ago. 10 years ago, he told these stories. And yet for 48 hours, the British media was queuing up to contend that it is absolutely despicable, dishonourable and dangerous for him to do exactly what he did 10 years ago. Now, what's changed since they wrote these headlines? What's changed since they wrote these stories? What's changed since the same people put the same names to these same stories? I don't know. Got married, fell in love, turned his back upon the machine that feeds these organs, these newspapers, and here you are. Or here they are, rather, today, responding to the misrepresentation of a story about a British military hero by taking the same line that the Taliban took. Wow.
Squaddies, I need you to sit with this one for a second, because it is one of the cleanest, most undeniable pieces of tabloid hypocrisy this channel has ever covered. Not arguably, not depends how you look at it. Documented, dated, bylined. In January 2023, when Spare was released, the British press lost its mind over one detail. Prince Harry writing about his time as an Apache helicopter pilot in Afghanistan and the number of enemy combatants he says he killed. The headlines called him reckless, dishonourable, a security risk. Some outlets said he'd put British troops in danger just by putting it on paper. Here's the problem for them. He said the exact same thing in the exact same terms 10 years earlier, in 2013, to the same newspapers, and back then he was a hero. Let's do this properly, because squaddies don't do vibes, we do evidence. 2013, the Daily Mail's headline, Harry says he took a life to save a life, flying out of Afghanistan as an Apache pilot. The Sun's headline that same year, Harry kills Taliban commander in a missile strike, described as a hero prince. The Express, Prince Harry reveals he killed Taliban fighters. The Mirror, Harry's sensation. His own words, I've killed Taliban, described as an amazing interview as he ends his tour. The Daily Star ran the same line. Every single tabloid. Same claim, same prince, same war. 2013. Now, fast forward a decade. Same facts, more detail, published in his own memoir with his own context around it. And suddenly it's a scandal. Suddenly military experts are being wheeled onto morning television to say this was reckless. Suddenly commentators who spent 2013 calling him a war hero are calling him a liability in 2023. What changed, squaddies? The facts didn't change. The war didn't change. The man didn't change his story. What changed is who he married, and what he's since said about the institution and the press that built these headlines in the first place. Here's how this actually works, and it's worth understanding because you'll see this pattern on every Sussex story going forward. A tabloid doesn't need to lie outright. It just needs to strip context. Harry's actual words in Spare are careful, reflective, clearly troubled by what war asks of a person. That nuance doesn't fit a headline. So instead of veteran reflects painfully on wartime service, you get Harry boasts about kills, a word he never used, in a framing designed purely to provoke outrage rather than inform anyone of anything. And once one outlet runs that angle, the rest follow, because outrage is what gets clicks, and accuracy has never been the priority when Sussex stories are on the table. Bring on a retired colonel or a security expert for 90 seconds of manufactured concern, and you've built yourself a controversy out of nothing but a decade-old fact wearing a new headline. That's not journalism. That's the tabloid machine manufacturing a story it can sell, using a war record it praised the first time around, because the man attached to it now inconveniently walked away from the institution that machine depends on. This isn't just about one bad headline cycle. This is the whole playbook, squaddies, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Praise a royal when they're inside the tent. The second they leave, the second they stop playing the access game with palace correspondents and Fleet Street editors, the exact same facts about their life become weapons. Not new facts, the same facts. Recycled with a different verdict attached, because the verdict was never really about the facts in the first place. It was about compliance. Harry didn't become more dangerous to write about between 2013 and 2023. He became less useful to the machine that needed him inside it. And that's the part the derangers never want to sit with, because it means admitting the outrage was never principled. It was manufactured on demand the moment it became commercially convenient to turn on him. So next time someone tells you Harry shouldn't have written that, send them these 5 headlines from 2013. Same claim, same prince. Praised as a hero then, dragged as a villain now. The only thing that changed is who benefits from the story. That's the tabloid machine for you, squaddies, and it's exactly why this channel exists, to put the receipts side by side so you can see it for yourselves. If this broke it down for you, hit subscribe, drop a comment with your reaction, and I'll see you in the next one. Sussex Squad, stay loud.